funny story. So on my 30th birthday, literally on my 30th birthday, I came down with a really bad case of influenza that turned into pneumonia. And so I was getting I was just getting super sick 2 or 3 times a year. And so on my 30th birthday, I was bedridden. And so all I could do was read. And I started kind of researching because I've always been interested in nutrition, and found Dr. Ken Berry's book and read the whole thing in like a day. Lies My Doctor Told Me. And that is what started it. I was like, I gotta change this. Like it's, I'm like, maybe it's not the answer. Maybe it is. I don't know what the truth is anymore, because there's so many, conflicting sides in nutrition. So I decided to start putting red meat back in my diet, and just boom, within a month, started feeling drastically different.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Hi there. We've got Christina we're going to chat with today. She's going to tell us a little about her success story. So, Christina, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Well, welcome. Good to see you. So, where are you located, first of all?
I am in Plattsmouth, Nebraska. So just a little bit south of Omaha.
Okay. So you're on I used to work in North Platte, I think. They're not near there.
North Platte, wow.
When I was in the Air Force, when I was out in the missile fields as a nuclear weapons guy, I used to drive out there and go man the nuclear missile launch control centers back in the 1990s. So spent a lot of time underground in Nebraska. So anyway, good to see you. So I was reading a little about your sort of background history. So you're a track athlete, a sprinter, and I guess let's just start with that. Tell us a little bit about your background.
All right. I originally started as a soccer player all through youth. I was a soccer player and actually got recruited into college as a soccer athlete as well. I ended up getting hit in the head too much. So I needed to find a different route. And luckily the track coach at the college that I was playing soccer at had come to a lot of games and said, hey, you're pretty fast. You want to try track? And I was like, hey, as long as I have my own lane and no one runs into me, then I think I'll be good. Right. So he put me in the 400 meter dash. And the first time I ran it collegiately, I didn't even know how to come out of blocks, and ran 58 seconds. So he was like, oh, we're keeping you in track. And so ended up graduating a 2-time All-American in the NCAA Division II in the 400. So that's my background as an athlete, and still competing now after 3 kids. So,
oh, nice. Well, it's kind of funny. My oldest daughter, who's 14, she just started running the 400, and she's right at 1 minute flat. So she's doing pretty good and she's just starting to, and I don't think so hopefully she'll continue to progress on that. And so, 400 meters, that's still your distance, or do you do a lot of other distances too?
I actually moved up to the 800. So I'm an 800 specialist now. When I left college, I kind of tried to dabble in training to get to the Olympic trials, and because of my health, I couldn't do that, and just it wasn't working out. So I decided to kind of give up the 400 and said, right, I left it on a good note. And when I started training again, I just wanted to challenge my body differently, but be able to still use my speed. So I really wanted to try something else. So then apparently I like the painful races,
Yeah, that's
so then comes the 800.
Yeah, that's the thing is the 400, 800, or 800 in particular is supposed to be like the most painful, awful things you can do as an athlete, track athlete.
Mm-hmm.
So you said you had some health issues that sort of derailed some of your goals as an athlete in college. What kind of issues did you have, if you don't mind sharing?
Absolutely. I had really, really bad hypoglycemia. And I never really got any answers from doctors on how to fix it. It was just kind of came to genetically, my sister also dealt with it as well. And so I would be in the middle of training, maybe repeat 200s or 100s, and I would just get super lightheaded and have to stop completely. That just kept happening. Sometimes it would just come out of nowhere, and I would just try to shovel the carbs to keep it from coming, and it would still happen all the time, and began to just be such a distraction during my training. And I just felt, well, I can't solve this. This is just something I'm going to deal with. It looks like high intensity training is not going to be able to happen for me anymore. So the hypoglycemia was really bad to the point where I'd pass out. Mm-hmm. And I was also starting to have some gut problems. So really, really bloated, distended gut, really uncomfortable during running. Running always seemed to kind of flare it up worse too. So I would be kind of bloated after meals, but then as soon as I would start running, it just would feel like there was a rock in my stomach. So I was like, well, running is just triggering it. So maybe I need to take a break.
So, I mean, you said you participated in soccer when you were younger, starting in college. And then, so what was the diet like? I mean, obviously a lot of athletes are told, we're eating a lot of carbohydrates for performance, carbohydrate loading. I don't know the time frame, but it's still very popular, and to some degree still is. I think it's less so now, but what was the diet like back then?
So growing up, luckily, my parents always did a lot of home cooked meals. So we didn't eat a lot of fast food, which was a blessing. But we had a lot of, casseroles, easy to make things. There was 3 of us kids. Luckily, my parents have changed their diet since then, but we ate a lot of casseroles and just easy things. And I ate red meat as a child. My parents always made it. We're Nebraskans, so we're proud to eat our meat. So I did eat red meat as a child, but as soon as I got to college, I started being really interested in nutrition. Thus came the watching the documentaries and things like that, that were really selling the low fat, the veganism, plant-based diet. So I actually, on my own, as a collegiate athlete, started cutting out red meat completely. I think I went 3 years without, I maybe had a steak when I went home, and then I would kind of feel guilty about it after I ate it. But I was chicken and cereal and protein shakes and salads and popcorn. I thought I was eating healthy. I wasn't eating a lot of junk, but I was eating, the standard healthy low fat diet. So lots of salads, lots of special K cereal, whole grain bagels, all of that. And so I thought, I was doing the right thing at the time, but my health said otherwise.
Well, I mean, the diet you're describing would be almost perfect considered by many dietitians, whole grains, lean cuts of meat, not a lot of junk food. So hypoglycemia, I mean, you said, you didn't experience hypoglycemia outside of training though? You didn't do it, or did you?
I actually had a couple episodes. I will never forget it. My husband and I, we were engaged at the time, and we went to a concert, and I hadn't, we had dinner, but I probably had a salad or something at that point. And this is after college. And so I was still eating that low fat diet outside of college, and we were at a concert, and I just started shaking, and started to get really woozy, we're going to pass. So we actually had to leave to go find me, a granola bar or a protein bar to get it in really quickly. I actually kept glucose tablets on me just to counteract these hypoglycemia, just passing out. And that was, I just thought it was normal at the time.
Did you ever measure your blood glucose? Was it ever something
I didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't. I wish I would have. That would have been really interesting to see.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's tough to train if you're passing out in the middle of training or getting close to. It's hard to sustain that training. So you said you'd had 3 children and now are back to running. Did you ever take a break from training, or have you always trained and always done athletic stuff, or did you take a period of time where you just didn't do much?
So as soon as I left college, I still enjoyed working out and running. And I always kind of felt like I wasn't done, just because I started track so late. For most track athletes, they're running through high school, then collegiately, then post-collegiately. I hadn't started till I was a sophomore in college. So I didn't feel done, but my body was kind of telling me otherwise. So it was becoming such a struggle to try to maintain my job and training and trying to keep my, health on track as well. So I stayed in shape, I would say, but I had kind of been burnt out on competing. So I kept myself in shape, and then we decided to have kids. And so there I kept myself fit, kept going to the gym, kept running, just nothing intense. And so my hypoglycemia was still there, definitely during my first pregnancy, before I had changed my diet. And then with my second pregnancy, a little bit as well. But I stayed in shape throughout it, but I was still definitely didn't really have the urge to get competitive again until my diet changed, which was after the birth of my second child.
Okay. And so the urge to go back. So master's track now at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 800 meters master's track. And so how long have you been doing that now?
So I started training right after the birth of my middle child, which she is now 5.
Okay.
So I had her, and that's kind of the same time my diet changed. And I started training and seeing huge amounts of progress very quickly after a pregnancy. And then I just kind of started to get that itch because I was the submaster at the time, so 30. And so I started to get that itch to go, I can still sprint pretty fast for a 30-year-old. And so that kind of triggered, and I had a coach, and my current coach at the time, and he's now my coach, he was saying the same thing. He's like, you're pretty fast, maybe you should think about competing again. And then the fire just kind of came back. Then I got pregnant with my son. So I had to take a little bit of a break there, but kept training throughout the pregnancy and was on a carnivore diet the whole 9 months. And right after I had him, I was back to full on training 7 weeks after I had him. So, and he's 3 now.
Okay. So you've been on doing that for a while. So you said after your second child, so about 5 years ago, you started to get the itch to go back to competing and you changed your diet. What was the diet? What prompted the dietary shift at that time?
Yes. So I actually, funny story. So on my 30th birthday, literally on my 30th birthday, I came down with a really bad case of influenza that turned into pneumonia. And so I was getting I was just getting super sick 2 or 3 times a year. And so on my 30th birthday, I was bedridden. And so all I could do was read. And I started kind of researching because I've always been interested in nutrition, and found Dr. Ken Berry's book and read the whole thing in like a day. Lies my doctor told me. And that is what started it. I was like, I gotta change this. Like it's, I'm like, maybe it's not the answer. Maybe it is. I don't know what the truth is anymore because there's so many, conflicting sides in nutrition. So I decided to start putting red meat back in my diet, and just boom, within a month, started feeling drastically different.
And so you start feeling better. How does that impact your training and your hypoglycemia? So the hypoglycemia gone again, or is it still an issue for you?
I have absolutely no hypoglycemia. I haven't had one episode in 4.5 years. So the shift when I switched to cutting out all those carbs, that was a tough shift. I want to say for 2 weeks or so, I did not feel very good. But just kept learning, just kept diving into the literature and implementing electrolytes in. And within a month on the carnivore diet and restricting all the grains, getting every processed grain out of my diet, the hypoglycemia was gone, and I was able to start training. And the biggest thing that I noticed, definitely as a middle distance runner, because I'm still running quite a bit of mileage, like just the amount of muscle I'm maintaining and putting on my body. I'm holding more muscle now at 34 years old, almost 35, than I was in college.
And so, you've been, what prompted you to go from, more meat in the diet 5 years ago to full carnivore, I guess 3 years ago? What was the emphasis for that? Was there still something going on?
Yeah. So I was still kind of eating, I would say, more keto. So I was still implementing like a lot of greens, like spinach and kale. I mean, that had been my diet for so long. So it's like, these are superfoods, got to keep them in there. And so I still kind of was having some stomach distress, no hypoglycemia once I cut those processed grains out. But I was still having that bloated rock in the stomach feeling with all these greens that I was putting in my diet. So that kind of stimulated you know what? And then I found you on Instagram, and a couple other, by following Dr. Ken Berry, I found you. And so I decided to read your book, and I'm like, you know what? Let's try this. Let's see if it gets rid of the stomach distress. I'm a believer in what I've done so far and putting the red meat back in my diet. So I decided to get rid of the greens. And that was the next step to now I don't deal with any stomach distress whatsoever.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of people will be shocked because they're like, well, the vegetables are so good, and greens and leafy greens, they got all these vitamins and all that stuff. But you were eating basically a clean diet, red meat plus selected superfoods, and that was still causing you issues. And so you improved that. Is what I'm hearing. Is that correct? It's fair to say.
Correct.
And so, a lot of people will say, well, you can't train without carbs. You can't run, 800 meters. I mean, you need carbs to fuel, to have that top gear. Has that, I mean, compared to what you were doing in college, you know, I mean, it gets 400 and 800, not the same race, but similar. I mean, there's a similar sort of thing. Is your energy any different? Are you struggling with this?
I mean, my energy is great. It's definitely a lot better than college, because college, I just remember going into practice and just having to pound carbs right before practice because I knew I wouldn't get through it without a bagel and a granola bar and a banana. So I was shoveling in carbs. And now my more endurance days, so I'll have a long run, which will be an hour. I can go completely without any food in my stomach. So I'll wake up, drink some water, you know, maybe a little bit of coffee. I am a coffee drinker. I drink a little bit, but I'll just head out the door and go on a run I don't feel any sense of like, oh man, I'm going to bonk or start redlining, and I can get home just fine on those endurance runs. There is a couple of instances, like I'll use a carbohydrate for like jet fuel. So if I have a super hard lactic workout, or I have like repeat 300s at 800 pace, I'll eat like half of a banana or a little bit of honey. And so I do incorporate some fruit as jet fuel. I've seen it just really help with my racing. Definitely right before a race, my body just is like, okay, here's some energy, and uses it. But I just get fruit in. I avoid every grain. I haven't had a grain in years.
What, and you know, how are your times progressed since you started 5 years? Are you making progress still? Are you just holding your own, or how's that been going for you?
Yep. I've been making a lot of progress. So the very first time I ran the 800, because I never ran it in college. So the first time I ran it 4 years ago, I ran a 220. And so now I'm at a personal best of a 217. So, and with how my training's going this year, I'm hoping I can get down to that 214 range to really be competitive at Worlds. So Worlds is in March, and I'm real hoping to be able to medal. So usually women my age at the top elite in the world were about 215, sub 215 range. So, but there's definitely been a ton of progression because I'll still run. I ran an indoor 600, which is only an indoor race, but very similar to the 400. But a lot worse because it's not 200 meters longer. Yeah. But I hit like right at like a sub 140, so 139. So I still have that 400 speed in there too. So I think my coach is going to put me in an open 4. I run in college races, so I run against collegiate kids. So I'll probably run the open 4 too to kind of spin the wheels and see how that's going, because my speed is just progressing. So I can run sub 13. In practice the other week, from a standing start, I ran a 12.8 in the 100. So my speed it's insane how much better the speed part has gotten in the last 2 years. And usually it's like, that's kind of what starts to go away as you age, but mine is just continuing to get better. So we'll see.
Yeah. Interesting. Are you familiar? There's someone named Cynthia Monteleone. Are you familiar with her? Do you know her at all?
I do know her.
Yeah,
yep.
Cynthia,
so I actually was on her podcast about a year ago.
Okay. Yeah. Cause she's used a heavily meat focused diet. And she said she usually before a race, she'll pound a big old steak. And I think she's a 400 meter Masters world champion. I think at the 40 or 45 year age group or something like that. And so it's kind of interesting to see a number of people. It's not a one-off. It's kind of funny because I'm, currently number 1 in the world on the rowing machine for 1 minute, which is about a 400 meter distance. Similar sort of physiology, it's that painful, really painful, horrible sprint time where you're sprinting and then the agony keeps going for another minute.
I know.
And it's interesting because I'm the guy, and then it was like number 2 and number 4 and number 5 were all in the carnivore diet. It was just weird. It was like everybody, for some reason, there's a coalescence of good times being produced in these ranges. Maybe it's specific to that, but I've seen that in a number of different athletes now. So it's really cool to see. Have you had any downsides? I mean, I was trying to say, is there any downsides to, it sounds like your gut health has gotten better. Any real negatives to doing the diet? Cramping or sleeplessness or digestive issues or skin issues or I don't know, whatever might be bothering you.
Yeah, absolutely nothing. I mean, I haven't even had one hiccup since I've changed, besides all the greens that I was consuming, like in the beginning of when I switched to keto. Even through the pregnancy, I failed the glucose tolerance test with just failed it. But luckily, I think, Dr. Jamie Seaman, she was the OBGYN at the same place that my midwife was at. And so she luckily told my midwives, like, hey, she's on a carnivore diet. She's going to fail the glucose test. Her baby's just fine. And obviously everything was perfectly fine. But I sleep great, 8 to 9 hours a night. No skin issues. My skin's only gotten better. I had a lot of acne as a teenager. Even into college and right after college, I still struggled with hormonal acne, but obviously it was very associated to diet because I get 0 breakouts now. So no, absolutely no downsides. The only thing that I tweaked from going full carnivore to now is just a little bit of fruit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And no negatives from that up to this point for you, correct? That's fair to say.
No, there's a couple of fruits that do not sit well with me. And it's just kind of like a trial and error thing. Mm-hmm. So like oddly watermelon and a couple of melon fruits, just my stomach just says no, thank you. And so I just keep them out. Mm-hmm. And that's been the really cool thing about the carnivore diet is if I do implement something in again, like I think I tried a potato randomly like a couple months ago and just major heartburn from the potato. So it's like your body tells you immediately, I don't like that, which, when I was eating whatever I wanted, trying to be healthy, I wasn't getting a specific signal from a specific food. I just felt terrible all the time. Yeah. So that's the nice thing about the carnivore diet is if I do eat something and my body doesn't agree with it, it tells me immediately.
Yeah. Some people would say, well, that's just weakness because you can't even handle a potato. But I mean, in the past year, maybe you just always felt kind of crappy and you had nothing to refer it to. Let me go back to the pregnancy because a lot of women will want to know about this because, obviously your track is a neat thing. But so you did it in a completely carnivorous pregnancy and the baby was healthy and you were healthy. And how did that go? Because you've had 3 of them. Can you compare contrast the pregnancies?
Oh, yeah. So my daughters, I, was still eating healthy, but eating that standard, dietitian recommended healthy. And, they were uncomplicated pregnancies. I didn't have any complications. So I was lucky and I had 3 natural births and those all went fine. With my girls, I was very fatigued all the time. So it was very, very hard for me to exercise at all. Like I would just come home and just crash after work as a teacher because I'm on my feet a lot. But with my son, so it was completely carnivore. I built this child on steak and eggs and hamburger. I felt great. I was running until 33 weeks, I think. I gained about the same amount of weight. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people, think, oh, like you're depriving the child, you're not going to gain the right amount of weight. I gained almost the same weight as I did with my girls. But when and then my birth of him was super uncomplicated. I felt good the whole time. And my midwife, I'll never forget it. Right after he was born, she looked at the placenta and she was like, this is the healthiest placenta I have ever seen. Like it was just huge. So that was a big sign of obviously just the health of the nutrients I was getting in my body. I mean, I thought that was the coolest thing that she said that because it was just proof. And she thought, she didn't question my diet too much, but she did think it was a little weird that I wasn't eating any vegetables.
Yeah. One of the concerns that people did you take a prenatal vitamin or anything? Some people say, well, maybe you're not getting enough folate, and there's some issues with that. Was that something you did or needed to do or wanted to do or had to do?
I did take a prenatal, definitely in the beginning. I wasn't super religious about it in the 2nd and 3rd trimester, but in the 1st trimester, I had a little bit of nausea, which was a lot less with my son, who's the carnivore pregnancy. I had way less nausea with him than I did with my daughters. So that was another really cool benefit. But I wasn't eating as much just because I wasn't as hungry. So I did take a prenatal. Mm-hmm.
And he, I mean, as a baby, healthy baby, no problems, growing well, all that type of stuff, or?
Yeah, he's actually huge. So he's 3 and he is 43 pounds. He's got a big old head. So Yeah, his head size was in the 97th percentile. So my midwife always jokes. She goes, "He's got a big old brain from all that steak and eggs."
Well, I mean, very well could be true, and hopefully,
Yeah.
do you? And I don't know if you nursed your children. Was that something you did, or was that something so carnivore? No problem with nursing or anything like that.
No problems at all. Nope. I was carnivore all the way through breastfeeding him until I didn't start implementing fruit in until I was hardcore training again, which was after I was done breastfeeding him. But yeah, and honestly, the hormones with breastfeeding and all the issues that kind of come with that, I kind of struggled a little bit with my daughters, and with him, it was much, much easier thanks to all the, the steak and the eggs. And I felt a lot better too. Like I wasn't as fatigued coming off of postpartum. I felt like I healed really, really fast as well.
How is the rest of the family? Like your husband, for instance, is he? I guess he's got to be somewhat supportive of carnivore. Is he interested in it? Does he do it, or what's going on with that?
Oh yeah, he's a big fan of yours. He likes to row too.
Okay.
So yeah, he's definitely a carnivore. He actually eats more carnivore than I do. So he doesn't eat really any fruit at all. He'll kind of have some here and there, but I eat a little bit more fruit than him. But he's been a carnivore ever since I switched. So I do the grocery shopping and I said, "Hey, you want to try this?" And he said, "Steak and eggs, sure." So switching him over was easy, and he just loves it. And he's still an incredible athlete. So he played football in college, and now he does a lot of rowing, does a lot of powerlifting. He can still hang cling about 330 pounds.
Oh, nice.
So at 36 years old. So he's a pretty strong guy. Yeah.
Well, tell him I hit that at like age 43, so he's got to keep going. I remember
you got to keep it going.
When I started Olympic lifting in my 40s for Highland Games, and I think I got up to about a 330 hang clean. I think I was 42ish, 43 years of age. So give him a target to shoot for. So
that's awesome. I will.
Good for that. And it's obviously he's doing well with that. What about the kiddos? What are you guys feeding them? I'm feeding them some. I mean, they're not probably carnivore, but I mean, they're probably getting plenty of eggs and. I don't know. What are you guys doing with the kids?
Absolutely. Yep. They are animal-based through and through. They eat very little grains just because we don't have it in the house. I'll occasionally make them a sandwich here and there with like Ezekiel bread or something. But they eat red meat every single day, at least twice a day. Once or twice a day, just kind of depends. I pack their lunches. They eat a lot of fruit. They love meat. They love beef, which is great. They like pot roast, like a good chuck roast and bone broth is their favorite meal. So they ask for that all the time. So yeah, we've had a lot of success with their health as well. They barely ever get sick. We have no allergies at all. Out of all three kids, no allergies. And yeah, I can't even remember the last time I took one of them to the doctor for anything. So
what are their ages?
It's really cool to see.
What are their ages again?
So 3, my son is 3, my daughter is 5, and my oldest daughter is 8.
Okay. So at least the oldest one is in school. I mean, I assume, I don't know unless you homeschool them, but is there any issues with schooling or anything like that?
No, we haven't had any issues at all. So I'm a high school teacher, and so they go to the same district that I do, and we're small rural district, and so they do well at school, and we haven't had any issues. And I pack their lunches, and it's pretty cool because a lot of people in my community, they know how I eat, and so they know the elder kids are. They're very energetic and love to run around, and they're strong and they do super well in school. They can focus well, and we haven't had any hyperactivity issues. That's been another thing. So my kids don't eat any processed sugar. We don't have cereal in the house or anything like that. They eat eggs for breakfast every morning. So it's been pretty cool to see how well they do in schooling just with the help of their diet.
As a teacher, I mean, I don't know like the curriculums in different schools, imagine, but I mean, there seems to be there's a global push to sort of convince kids that meat is bad for you, bad for the environment. Is that trickling down to where you are? Are you exposed to any of that?
No, thank goodness. So I am the health teacher in our high school. So I get to teach nutrition. We have a blast doing that. I do about 3 weeks on nutrition with my high school kids and about 2.5 weeks with my junior high. And we talk all about the benefits of beef and saturated fat and protein. And I really try to teach them, this is what protein is. It's incredible. These teenagers, you could just ask one and be like, have you had any protein today? And they'll go, I had an apple. It's like, that's protein. Like, they just don't understand like what a protein truly is, because they're just bombarded with convenience foods like Pop-Tarts and cereal. And so I really try to educate them on, here's what protein does for your body, the building block of your cells. And we really talk about red meat. And ironically, my principal is actually a cattle rancher as well. So
nice.
I have a lot of support.
Good for you. That's great. Sounds like a great school.
Yeah.
What do you, and so as far as like your diet, what is it? I mean, you said steak, eggs, and hamburger. I mean, is there any specific fat content you're trying to hit? Are you protein conscious? You mentioned protein to your kids. I'm somebody who sort of leans more on the higher protein side than some other people that are carnivore advocates. A lot of people are more fat and less protein. Where do you fall on that sort of spectrum?
Generally, so I started kind of tracking my macros just for my coach to see. Because before I just never tracked. I just kind of, I'm full, I'll stop eating. But it was interesting because I'm hitting about, so I'm 130 pounds and my protein intake is probably like 215, 220 grams a day. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's, higher than what people like normally eat, but it just kind of depends. Like sometimes I'll want more fat in my hamburger. And so I'll eat like an 80-20 hamburger. Ground beef works really well for me as a teacher, just because our lunch is like 20 minutes. And so I have very limited time. Sometimes I want more fat. Sometimes I want it to be a little bit leaner. So I'll do like a 90-10 beef. But beef is what my body loves. Yeah. I just honestly don't function well on chicken. I just don't feel great on it. So I don't eat a lot of chicken anymore. It just kind of depends. I love chicken wings. So we'll eat that occasionally. My husband will do some chicken wings in the oven, but it just works so well off red meat and steak. I'm a big ribeye girl. So I'll eat ribeyes and New York strips and then eggs. I feel great on eggs. So I eat eggs almost every single day as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sounds like my diet. I mean, I'm steak every day, and usually I'm eating 8 to 10 to 12 eggs a day or something like that. That works quite well. I personally don't include any fruit or stuff like that, but that's fine. Do you do any of are any of the kids like going, you're crazy? Here's our teacher. She's a crazy health teacher, or are they on board for the most part?
Most of them are really interested by it. So I teach like 16, 17-year-olds. We have quite a few athletes, like 3 sport athletes, and farm kids and stuff like that in our school. And I think it's interesting because they'll look at my build and I'll tell them my diet and my, like how many calories I eat in a day. That always like blows their mind because I'm usually hovering around 3,000 or a little over that. And they're just like, you eat that much? That's crazy. And so they're just so interested and intrigued that I am able to run as much as I do. Lift, like lifting has been one thing that has really skyrocketed for me. A lot of middle distance runners don't lift very heavy. But my strength coach has me deadlifting, front squatting. So the other week I deadlifted 205 pounds. I think I did 4 or 5 reps. And so at my, build as more of a middle distance runner, like it's all beef, man. Like I could barely do that in college. So they're very intrigued by my diet. So they ask a lot of questions, which is really cool. And I had a kid, I always used to kind of give him crap. He'd be getting ready to go to weights class and he'd be just like eating a bag of chips or something. And I was like, you think that's good fuel before you lift? He's like, I know. And he took my health class and now I see him, he's got, a beef stick before weights. And so they're listening. I know they are. Some of them will admit it, some of them not so much, but we definitely see a culture change. Yeah.
Yeah. Good for you. And being the example really, really shows because, obviously you're successful successful pregnancies, good, healthy, happy kids, you said you're 34, 35, 34,
almost 35.
Almost 35. I mean, compared to the average 35-year-old female, I mean, you're doing much better than most of them from a physical standpoint, for sure. I mean, most women couldn't run 800 meters, not alone doing it under 2 minutes and 20 seconds. So,
yeah.
I mean, it looks like your body composition, you look like you're fairly lean, was what I'm guessing. I mean, I can see your shoulders and stuff, but I can tell you're fairly lean just from looking at you there. And that's fairly easy to maintain on all meat, basically.
Oh, absolutely. I actually had a funny comparison picture. So I've always been lean, but I didn't have muscle like this, but I've always been like kind of skinny on the skinny side. So when I was running like half marathons and stuff right after college, that was a picture of me, and I was just kind of skinny looking, but just not defined. And now I don't do any abs, and I have a 6-pack. And so that's kind of like another thing that always draws attention from people, which is kind of funny, that I'll have people ask me, they're like, man, you must work out 3 hours every day and like not eat a thing to have a 6-pack. I'm like, not really. I train about 45 minutes a day and lift 3 times a week, and I just eat a lot of meat. I'm like, that's all I do. I don't do abs like ever. Yeah, so it's that always really gets people interested. I've never had a 6-pack before. Like when I was in college, I didn't have one, and now it's just there. So.
Yeah, I know the same thing. It took me until I was in my mid-40s before I got one. And
isn't that funny?
It was just, and I trained just as hard. I mean, I was training like super hard, all my life, and never had a 6-pack until I got in 40s. And now in my 50s, I pretty much have one most of the time. When you are competing, do any of your competitors, I mean, any of the track athletes you run against notice? I mean, I don't know if it's been enough to where you've had people commenting or that type of stuff. Is that going on with what you're doing?
Yeah, a little bit. So we have a pretty tight knit community, definitely in like the masters realm. And definitely Cynthia has been a great voice for getting the truth out there too about diet. So we immediately were drawn to each other because we're like, we eat the same. This is so cool. Because you'd see definitely at the professional level, plant-based diets are very strong at the professional level. And so in a lot of just carbs, just processed grains, you're seeing all sorts of it. So we just want to do what we can to get the truth out here and how much better you feel. I haven't had a soft tissue injury since I've started competing as a master. So I train 7 days a week. And obviously I'm sprinting and stuff like that, and 0 soft tissue injuries. And in most runners, just from the repetitive movement, you see an injury like once a year generally. So it makes me sad when I see a lot of the professionals that are just, they're just continually seeing, an Achilles thing or a knee problem or hamstring strain. And it's like, man, I wonder what that diet could, what eating more red meat and more of an animal-based diet could do for them. And so we're just trying to get the truth out there. But there's definitely quite a few of my competitors that will comment. I'm trying to be very active on Instagram, and they'll comment and go, that's crazy. You ate that whole steak and you went and, ran an hour later. It's like, oh yeah, I feel awesome. And so they're definitely like, I think there's wheels turning and people are starting to be curious.
Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I would eat 2-3 pounds of steak and an hour later I'm out in the gym training hard, and it's no issue. It's no issue at all. How about mental focus, clarity, mood, emotions? Has that made a difference at all for you? Have you noticed any difference in cognition or mood or anything like that?
Oh, massive. Absolutely massive. I had a really hard time focusing in school, in high school and junior high. I'm just a mover. So I would just get easily just lose interest in things and not able to focus. And even in college, I would start reading. I was a history major and a health and physical education major. So lots of reading, lots of papers, stuff like that. And I had a really hard time studying and trying to memorize things. I just feel like I would look at something and forget it really quickly. So I had to work really, really hard in school. And it's interesting because now as a teacher, I just feel like I maintain energy and focus the whole time the whole time I'm teaching. And then by the end of the day, I can go outside and train, which before I just felt so fatigued by the afternoon. I could just no longer like mentally give anything. And then I go home and I'm a mom after that. So it's pretty incredible the energy I feel and able to focus and study things because I'm just so interested in our nutrition space. So I can read, medical things that you'll post or somebody else posts. I can read and remember it, and then I can teach it. And so the focus has been hugely different from when I was in college.
Yeah, I've seen that commented many, many times that people just know not only the physical things, but the mental things get better as well. Which part of it? You said you're near Omaha, correct? You said a little town near Omaha. Okay, yep. So you've got some good cattle ranchers. When you buy your meat, do you get it from a local rancher? You get it from the store? Where do you typically get it from?
So we get it from the store right now. We just moved into a little bit of a bigger house where we can get a deep freeze. So our plan is to get a deep freeze and be able to buy from. So actually, my boss, his brother takes fat cattle to the butcher like frequently. And so we have a steady stream of meat that we can get. We just want to be able to support the ranchers like that. And I'm actually partnering with the Nebraska Beef Council. I just talked to their director of nutrition about probably a week ago, just how I can partner and help and just kind of get the truth out there. So yeah, I'm super excited to support our local ranchers that way and hopefully get into a couple of the colleges. So we have Creighton University, University of Nebraska, Nebraska Carney, get in and talk to athletes about the importance of red meat. So he's got some really good pipelines that we're going to be able to partner together and just get the truth out there. I'm really passionate about that. And then also to female athletes with Red S. So we see so many females that are so nutrient depleted because they're just not getting iron. They're not getting in protein. They're eating like I did in college, just the salads and the chicken and the fruit and the bagels and the cereal. And so I'm really passionate about that from like the female hormone side as well, and getting females on track and getting that Red S solved for female athletes.
You said Red S. I'm not even familiar with what is Red S.
It's relative energy deficiency syndrome. Okay. So it's where you see female athletes. It used to be called the female athlete triad.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
I've heard of that. Sure.
It's all menstrual cycle related.
Yeah, got it.
So really it's changed the name of, it's like, okay, we're not getting in enough energy. So women are, their cycles are messed up and their hormones are messed up.
Right. Yeah. Osteoporotic fractures and things like that. Stress fractures. Yeah. Okay, I didn't realize they updated the name. I guess I just haven't paid attention to it. So that's a new one to me. Somebody's commenting, Becky lives in Omaha. She's saying D&D beef is close to you. I don't know if that rings a bell to you, but apparently there's a beef company called
Yes,
D&D.
it does. Yep.
Oh, okay.
I'll have to check that out.
And as far as the school that you're teaching at, are they? I mean, is the school menu reasonable? I mean, the kids eating garbage, or what's in the cafeteria?
That's one thing I really want to be able to get into the space and change. I've actually talked to my boss about that a little bit as well. It's, there's days where it's okay, but a lot of it's just processed in there, and this is a lot of it's out of control because the, public school systems are tied to, okay, we only have this much money for school nutrition. So this is what we got. And so I see kids walk into my classroom. It's generally donuts and cereal, just something easy to grab and go. And it just frustrates me. We have some mornings where they'll make eggs. Well, they'll do like an egg sandwich or something like that. So it's like, okay, that's better than donuts. But I get, that's something that I'm passionate about that I want to start, once I have a little bit more time to really dive into and see, okay, what can we do to improve this? So the best thing that I can do now is just kind of educate my kids. So if I see them in the morning with a Pop-Tart coming to class, we talk about, okay, this is what's happening in your body right now. Do you think it's good fuel? Do you think you're going to be able to focus well after you eat that? And they're like, no. So I just try to do what I can to kind of educate my teenagers on trying to get protein in the morning for breakfast. You should be eating protein for your meals and your snacks, not just junk carbs, but it's definitely something that needs work, but I think it needs work nationwide.
Yeah. You said you're training for Masters Worlds. When and where is that?
It is in Torun, Poland in March. So the end of March, we'll fly out March 24th, and I'll compete in the 800 and the 1500. I still got to run the 1500.
Oh, the 1500.
I'm decent at the 1500, so I get thrown into that too.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
So yeah, I'll do both in Poland. So I'm super excited. It'll be my first Team USA uniform. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Oh, is Cynthia going to be on the team with you? I wonder if she's
actually doing the multi-event. She's doing the pentathlon for the first time.
I saw her doing some throwing stuff. So I don't know. She's just kind of rounding out her game a little bit like that. So do you have any targets, any numbers you're trying to hit?
Yes. So I'm trying to my coach is a big, let's set high goals here, so what do you really want to do? And I work really well when I set high goals for myself. I'm just been really driven my whole life. I love working towards something that seems impossible. So I would love to get down to a 212. There's a couple of really talented women out of Great Britain and another really good runner that's out of Belgium, I believe, that are running, pretty consistently 213, 214 in indoors. And so I want to be right in that mix, and I really want to medal in the 800. It's been kind of a dry spell for USA women, definitely in the 35 age group, the 35 to 39. It's been kind of a dry spell. We haven't had any really competitive middle distance runners internationally. So I want to break that, and I want to get USA up there in that top 5. So that's my big goal for the 800. And then the 1500, I really want to make it to the final and hit, if I can run a 440 in the 1500, I'd be very, very happy with that. It's definitely a tougher race for me because I'm more of a speed athlete. So I'm just kind of hanging on for dear life in the 15, hoping I can outkick somebody at the end.
better you than me. I have no desire. I run my driveway is just under 400 meters. And sometimes I'll go out and run a sprint around that. And that's tough. It really is, do that, and it's, because I'm not really built for, I'm 250 pounds. So I'm not really ideal body type to be running 400 meter sprints, but I still do my best. Well, anyway, you said you had a social media, so share that if you don't mind, so people can, if you don't mind, letting people know where to reach you, if that's okay.
Absolutely, I'm really active on Instagram, so it's just Christina_Elder on Instagram. I like new friends on Facebook too. That's fine. So yeah, just Christina Elder on Facebook. So that's where I'm active, trying to share my journey there, and meal ideas for. If you've got little kids, I like to share my meals, simple meals on there to get red meat into their diets, and stuff too in education. I'm also a coach, so I'm the head track coach at our school. So some coaching stuff and all those good things.
All right. Well, I just found you on Instagram. I just followed you. I got you. I'm watching your video. You pulling 205 for 4 reps on the deadlift. So good for you, Christina.
Yes. Hopefully I can get up to the 250 range.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Yeah, for a middle distance runner. That's great. That's very important to do the weight training, I think. Anyway, I unfortunately got to go. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. Good luck at Worlds. Let us know how it goes. We're all pulling for you in team beef, team meat, and you and Christina hopefully will kick some butt and bring home some hardware for the USA and for also the broader carnivore community. So thank you so much for doing what you're doing and sharing your story. Thanks, Christina. Take care.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for all you do too. So it's cool that we're all a big team.
Yep, absolutely. All right, guys, we'll see everybody tomorrow. Take care, guys. We'll see you later. Right, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey folks, it's Dr. ShawnBaker here. If you guys are enjoying these success stories, well, you can become your own success story. You can do that by heading over to CarnivoreDiet. You can sign up for a free 30-day trial and get started today. We're looking forward to supporting you. Our community is wonderful, and we'd love to see your success.